This episode of Juice Guru Radio is brought to you by Try Best, making healthy living easy.
Welcome to Juice Guru Radio. Discover what the magic and power of juicing can do for you. And now, your host, best-selling author of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Juice Fasting, Steve Prusak.
Well, hello, welcome to the show. I'm Steve Prusak. So great to be with you, and I can't wait to dive in. We've got Jonathan Robinson, author of More Love, Less Conflict. That's his latest book. We're going to show you how to create more love and less conflict in your life with Jonathan. So get yourself a juice, some tea, or water. I'll be back right after this with Jonathan Robinson.
Did you know you can make a great living in the hottest new business trend today? The Juice Guru Certification Program is the world's first online course to give you the knowledge and marketing skills to excel as a juicing coach and start making money in no time. Find out more at juicecoachtraining.com.
Juice Guru Radio.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm Steve Prusak, and thank you again for tuning in and being here. I've got Jonathan Robinson. He's a psychotherapist, best-selling author of 12 books. His latest is More Love, Less Conflict. He's been on Oprah a few times, 4 times, CNN, and more. And he's here on Juice Guru Radio today, and what an honor. Let's welcome to the show right now, Jonathan Robinson.
Good to be with you, Steve.
Wow, I don't know if I can match Oprah, but it's great to have you on this show, Jonathan.
We're going to get into a lot of practical, good tools for your audience.
Well, I'm really excited because, relationships is such a big thing. Divorce is up. I've been through a divorce. My wife's been through a divorce. We're reunited high school sweethearts back together. Never thought I'd fall in love again. So thank you for being on the show. What about you and your journey? Like, what got you into this kind of work as a psychotherapist and then to start focus on relationships?
Well, love is the most important thing in life, and yet most of us don't have any training as to how to have more love and less conflict. So, I went through a difficult period early in my life, and I said, I'm going to study this and find what really works. So I wrote a book that Oprah liked called Communication Miracles for Couples, and it did well. But, things are changing. We need really simple tools that people can do in 10 seconds. That can lead to more love and less conflict. So I've specialized in methods that were so ridiculously simple that even I would use them.
Well, that's the key, simplifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
In this overcomplicated world that we live in.
And when we're stressed, we forget all the theory of what we're supposed to do. We need something that can help us to not have an argument or help us can get to be more vulnerable even when we feel like crap. And so really the book was 40 methods that generally can be done in under a minute that immediately lead to more love and less conflict.
And I love it. You're going to share some of these strategies right here on the show, and I know I'm going to be able to participate. I'm excited for that. So you talk about ways to double the love you have in a relationship in just a minute a day. Is that really possible?
It really is. And in fact, it's even backed by research. Studies show that people who are couples who appreciate each other for one lousy minute a day, that's not very long, find that they double the amount of love that they have in their relationship within 1 month. So, I'm a lazy slob, so I forget to do this. So I have Siri on my iPhone remind me to tell my wife something I really do appreciate. It's not something you make up. I really do appreciate stuff, but I sometimes forget. So every day I say something I really love about her. And she does the same thing for me. And it helps to get those good feelings flowing. It's probably the most important minute of the day for both of us.
Wow. So you set a routine. So it's the same time you get that notification and is it that structured and scheduled, or do you just kind of, bring it into the conversation? How does that work?
It's not scheduled. I just have the reminder to make sure I do it before I go to sleep.
Gotcha.
But it's something like I might even just complete this sentence. In fact, I could do this right now with you. Right now, I've noticed something I appreciate about you, Steve, is that you're really curious. You ask good questions, and you're really interested in this subject, and that makes an interview good. So I appreciate that about you.
And I noticed something about you, too. I noticed that you came here prepared. You've got great equipment. That's why I was like, wow, you know what you're doing. You've been through this, and you've got such a great message. And I love that you don't overcomplicate it because no one has attention for all that now. So you're like, I'm going to break it down, just show you right now. And that hooks us in. We can't wait to hear what you have to say next.
Yeah. We're both thinking these good things about each other. But unless you have a tool like the sentence, something I notice about you I appreciate is, we don't say it. Well, when we do say it, we feel more connected. I know that you're on the same page, you're trying to put out good information. So why don't we say those things? Because we don't have that simple little tool that will help us, or the simple little tool of Siri reminding you to do it before you go to sleep each night.
It's weird that it's not self-enforced, because I know when I give that to someone, or like even today, I connected with my wife in that way. I just told her I appreciate her because we've been so busy. We haven't been doing the 1 minute a day at all, but I was, but you can feel how they elevate, and you can feel how good it feels for them. And you would think that would be enough for us to get out of our own busyness and just do it more often.
Yeah, but it isn't. We're also distracted. We got so many things going on that we need these really power tools that help us to bring it into daily life so that we get the love and connection that we're really all wanting.
Now, divorce in this country really is an epidemic. Why do you think it is that people give up so easy? They don't stay together. Is it expectations? What is the problem?
Well, I think, if you were trying to fly a plane and you had no training in flying that plane, you wouldn't wonder, gee, why did it crash? Well, you had no training. But even an hour of training on flying a plane, you might be able to pull it off. Well, most people don't have that hour. That's why, a book or workshop on communication, how to have good relationships is so important. That's one thing. But also, we're all subject to what I call WMDs. WMDs aren't weapons of mass destruction. They're widgets of mass distraction. Mm. And these kind of create superficial ways of communicating. 1,000 Facebook friends doesn't really equal one really good friend by your side.
It's so true. So true. And this false, here we are in the community where we're getting it out there. We're all here together, but we're not. There really is something about an energetic exchange when we're together, but it feels good to connect with you in this way. This feels a little better than just texting you when because we're using technology, but it seems to be working in this situation. Well,
absolutely. In fact, with Zoom or Skype, you're actually confined to, I'm not doing the dishes now, right. Whereas when you're texting, you can be doing all kinds of stuff. So this tends to be a deeper form of communication than texting or email. But the best form is when, you're with your partner, they really have empathy for you. You can see their care and concern. And that's what really feeds our heart.
So are you finding that people are more awake to want to improve their relationships at this point? Are they saying, yeah, something's wrong, I've got to get this dialed in, because if not, I'm going to end up, divorced and maybe alone for the rest of my life?
Well, usually it takes some kind of pain. I know it did for me before I started to do this. But, you don't have to go through all that pain. I tell people you can literally double the amount of love you have for your entire life in an hour of studying good communication and good relationship skills. Now, if love's important to you, and not many people are saying, nah, that's not important. If love's important to you, then put in that time. You talk about juice. You know that people can improve their health really quickly by what they ingest. Well, if you know how to ingest the right energy from other people, but more important, how to give that energy out effectively and efficiently, then good things happen because it becomes like a superpower. If you know how to make people feel good and make them feel appreciated, or how to reduce conflict, it's like a superpower and people are magnetized to you.
Wow, that's really cool. And so when we're living that, how do we get to that point, though? What are some of the other strategies? So if we can become more aware of what our partner wants, or other people, because it's other relationships too, isn't it? It's not just our lover, or is it?
Absolutely. Well, look at the case of Oprah. Here's a person who was so poor, she never lived in a house with a bathroom. She was emotionally abused, sexually abused. She had a stillborn child at age 15. 25 years later, she's the most powerful woman on earth. I asked her, how did that happen? And she said, I didn't have anything going for me other than the fact that I really cared for people. I really felt them. So this thing called empathy, which we all really want, we all want understanding and empathy. And it's not that hard to give it. I mean, simply saying, something like, hey, Steve, it looks like you're having a stressful day, or how are you doing? I'm concerned about you. That's not rocket science. Or saying what you're feeling and wanting from somebody. Hey, could we just have 5 minutes alone together? I'm feeling like I really need to connect with you. These are words that people rarely say, but they're so powerful. And little things make a difference. It rocketed Oprah from the bottom of society to the top of the world.
What is it that holds us back? I mean, we could think those thoughts, but what's stopping us from saying them? Why aren't we being authentic with our feelings?
I think people aren't trained in knowing how important vulnerability is. You know, if you look at the word intimacy, in a way, the instructions are hidden in the word, into me see. So when you reveal stuff about yourself, it allows other people to step into your world. And we're not taught how to do this. So, you know, we're taught to brag and do all the things that you see happen in politics and showbiz. But being able to reveal stuff and be vulnerable is not a skill we learn. That's why in the More Love, Less Conflict book, I have a lot of things that are basically fill-in-the-blank sentences that allow you to reveal stuff easily. Like the sentence, if you really knew me. If you really knew me, Steve, you'd know that I'm always a little worried about coming off too much as a salesman in these things because I feel very passionate about it, but I hate salespeople. You know, if you really knew me, you'd know that I feel incredibly grateful that I learned some of these methods early in my life because the first half of my life I was alone and depressed. You know, when I reveal that stuff, it makes it easier for you to reveal that type of stuff as well.
Right, that's true. I could see that. Like, I don't know what that is, but when someone is vulnerable, you want to almost match them where they are with it.
Yeah. The key is to come up with methods that are so simple and so effective that people will use them. Like, I have a method that my wife and I, you know, 20 years ago when we got married, we'd argue a lot. So we came up with a method 5 years ago that involves saying 2 words that has eliminated 100% of our arguments.
Julie, I need you. I'm going to make her watch this. What are those words? I can't wait.
Those 2 words are yellow light. And we have an agreement that when we say the words yellow light to each other, that means that we're getting upset. We're starting to have a momentum of upset. And we need to take a 2-minute timeout to relax and calm down.
For those on radio, Julie just actually stepped in. She's like, what's going on in here? And we're talking about relationships. He's been on Oprah 4 times, and they have a key word because he and his wife argued a lot.
Okay.
And so we've talked about how, it's funny that you say that because we've talked about having, maybe when we get, you know, when we're escalating, if we had a special word that pulled us back, and your word was yellow light.
Yeah.
Yellow
So
light.
we just make the agreement that if either of us says yellow light, we have to sit for 2 minutes quietly holding hands. And after 2 minutes, then we reboot and try it again.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Like
We're going to
that.
try that in our life. We're going to get back to you. You know, not that we ever argue, Jonathan. You know, we got it all dialed in. Us.
Never. I'm going to try it with my son, too. That might be good.
Julie said she'll try it with her son, for those on radio who couldn't hear that. Thank you for that, John. Thank you for dropping by, Julie, for that. And I'm sure there'll be more to share. Where else are we going wrong in our relationships, though, Jonathan?
Well, the biggest problem every couple makes, or even with kids or whatever, is we blame. I don't know about you, Steve, but I've never told my wife everything that's wrong about her, what she's doing wrong, where she said, oh, my God, you're right. Thank you for showing me the errors in my ways. Now I will have to change. I'm batting 0 for 1,000 on that.
I've been there. Been in that spot.
For some reason, we think that blame is going to work this time. You know, that's the language we're taught, and we need to learn to speak the language of love rather than the language of blame. And luckily, it's not that hard to learn that language, but if you think blame is the only language in town, then that's what you do.
But where does that even come from? Where does that blame thing come from, or the, evaluating and giving unwanted feedback?
Well, as I said, I think we have this fantasy that our partner will finally see the light when we blame them. You know, it never happens. But that's our fantasy. And if you don't have an alternative way of communicating, that's what you end up doing.
It sounds good. And then in theory, and people are saying, okay, that sounds good, but how do we, because sometimes we can get excited, and we should all pick up the book. Of course, and those that tuned in late, it's Jonathan Robinson. His latest book out of the 12 is, and here it is, More Love, Less Conflict, available on Amazon. And your website too, Jonathan, right? They didn't give me your website here.
Well, my website's morelovelessconflict.com.
Well, then, you know, that's where you go. And if you're going to go to our website, we'll have it under the show notes at juicegururadio.com. I'll have a link to that, and I'll have a link to Jonathan's book too, and he's got all the other ones too, so that's pretty amazing.
Actually, for your listeners, they can get what's called the 12 Questions of Instant Intimacy for free as a download on the morelovelessconflict.com website.
Oh, nice.
These are questions that immediately lead to an intimate conversation, really, with anyone.
Oh, I love that. Okay, and that's available up at the website. So we'll have a link to that, too. It's morelovelessconflict.com, and that makes sense. And it reminds me of nonviolent communication, like that kind of thing. Is that what you were getting at here?
Well, I studied with Marshall Rosenberg in nonviolent communication, and it's good stuff, but the problem is it's too complicated. It takes
so
people
complicated that I only know the term, but I know nothing about it because when I looked at it, it was just too complicated.
Yeah.
True.
That's why, my methods are, can you say the words yellow light? Can you fill in this blank statement with 2 words? Right now I'm feeling, right now I'm wanting. Can you say, I can see that one way I contributed to this upset is, that's taking responsibility. So there's a lot of methods that are just fill in 3 words, can you do that? If you can do that, you can double the amount of love in your life. And those were the methods that I got from people like the Oprah, or I interviewed the Dalai Lama. I interviewed a lot of people who are really good communicators and found out what was the simplest way of repeating what they were doing.
So basically, it's the empathy piece, though, right? Is that the biggest part of it?
Empathy and understanding. Those are the 2 things people want the most. And if you can give them that, they will give it to you back. But there's really powerful ways to give empathy, and there's ways that are a little bit off base. So you got to kind of dial it in a little bit.
Did you ever research the Harville Hendrix, the Imago thing, where he said we kind of relive our childhood wounds from the parents with our partner? Do you think there's any validity to that, or does that play into your work at all? Do you think there are wounds we're trying to heal with our partners?
Absolutely. The problem with his stuff is it's also complex. What do you do about that? So, life is very fast-paced now. It's very stressful. So when these wounds come up or stress come up, you have to know exactly how to deal with it in the real world where the rubber meets the road. And by having a bunch of theory, even if it's correct theory, that doesn't always cut it.
Right. So this yellow light strategy, do we call it the yellow light strategy?
Sure,
so what have you found with your clients, your personal experience of using that? And obviously it's coming up when you're triggered, when one of you gets triggered, you're using yellow. What happens? Does it become like a habit?
It does become like a habit, especially when you see that it works so well. But, I'm a big believer that different tools work for different people. Like one of the tools in the book is just talking about triggers. When you're triggered in this way, what would you like me to do? That's a really good question. When I'm triggered, this is what I want you to do. Because a lot of couples don't know what that is. And without knowing that information, they get triggered a lot. Or how about in bed? My wife and I shared 3 things I really like in bed are X, Y, and Z. 3 things I don't really care for in bed are X, Y, and Z. Immediately our love life got 50% better in a 2-minute conversation. Most couples don't share that information. So there's a lot of methods that can really help quickly if you know what those are. Or I mentioned before I call it the 12 questions of instant intimacy. These are questions that you can ask. Like one of them is, what helps you to feel loved by me? That's an important question to know because you want to know what helps your partner to feel loved.
Is this good for people that are single, that are dating? I mean, it seems like these are good questions to really get to know your partner. That's something we do too. Like, I remember I used to go through books and ask all these questions and try to, unveil who they really are. Are these good ways for us to connect with people even before we're married?
Absolutely. And really the same questions work for a date, for a partner, for your kids, even for friends. People want intimacy. People want connection. So it's not really a partner thing. It's a human thing. So as long as that person next to you is human, then there's a good shot.
So what are three different strategies we can use? We've got the 1 minute, we've got the yellow light. Are there a couple of more things that we can start implementing? I mean, obviously the book is loaded with them. Yeah. And again, it's More Love, Less Conflict. And I want a copy because I don't think Jackie sent me a copy, but I'm actually going to be getting my copy and I'm going to get your questions too, because I just love this. I love what you're doing, honestly, personally. What are a couple of other things we could take home and use in our toolbox?
Well, I find that a very simple way to get your partner out of blame and to listen to you is to say this magical sentence. I can see that one way that I contributed to this upset is, and then say how you see that you may have contributed to the upset. This, I call it taking responsibility. And it is so rare nowadays that when people say that sentence, other people really listen. They almost stop breathing.
Don't you have to get to a part in the argument where you're calm? It almost seems like when you're both triggered and you're fighting or arguing, right? For lack of a better word, you're not in that rationale mind. It's like you have to. For me, I know everyone has different strategies. I like to just leave and calm down or take a walk. My wife wants me right there with her, and so she comes at me at those times, and that's a conflict. Like, she needs me there, and I need space. How do we get to that spot where we can be calm, and then I can come back and say those things? Because when we're in the moment, it's almost like we're just too escalated, right?
Yeah, that's a very common situation, Steve. And my wife and I had that as well. So I use this sentence, and it's in the book. I need to calm down now for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And after 5 minutes, I promise to come back and we'll work through this.
Oh, I'm going to use
that. Allowed my wife to relax with me leaving. And allowed me to leave.
Okay. So you can relate to that one.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, that will be very helpful. That was worth $1 million. That's like the golden nugget right there. I can't wait to try that one out. These are real tangible tools, and they're simple, but they're not common sense. Because I was thinking before, this should be taught in school. Like, I wish I learned this when I was in high school. I mean, typing was probably the best class I took because now the world is run by computers, and I'm so grateful to be able to type. But this is real skill that we just don't learn this unless we seek it. And why is that?
It's such a shame. Our educational system seems to spend many years on stuff that we'll never use once and spend zero time on stuff that we use all the time. We communicate 15 hours a day. To become a psychotherapist, I never had to take a class on communication. I did have to take a class on calculus, geometry, trigonometry, and algebra.
So what led you to get the message out? And are you still practicing, or is your mission getting this out? And you're obviously writing all these books. What else are you doing? How did you start to live your passion in this way?
Well, I started to really study it for myself, and I started to see, well, some of this stuff out here, it really doesn't work. It's too complex. And once I found something that worked, then I said, wow, this is such a great idea. Other people should know about it. So that became the books. Oprah liked the books, and it went from there. But my passion right now is letting people know to learn this language, because especially in this age where we have so much polarization, we need more love and connection to heal our hearts and heal the world. So anything I can do to move it in that direction feels really good to me.
Well, that's a beautiful mission, especially in a world where there's so much division now and so much anger, and it's hard to go out in it and you almost want to wrap yourself in a cocoon and be like, what is going on? Why is there so much conflict? And are we evolving, or is there just more division than there ever was? It's just sometimes some of those days you just wonder, right?
Yeah. Well, we have this lizard brain from our past, but we need to learn to use our human brain to get to love, to learn these skills that do lead to that. I mean, 500 years ago, we all had clubs, and the biggest person with the biggest club won. But now, winning really is the person with the most love and peace in their life. But we haven't all learned that skill of how to get there. So I think, through shows like yours, that message gets through to more and more people. And when you learn this skill, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping your family, you're helping your partner, you're helping your kids. Because really a life lived in love and peace and connection is the best thing you can do for the people you care about.
How do we bring it to the kids? I got my stepson, 12 years old, right before the teen years. It's rough in this house sometimes. How do we bring it to our kids?
The number one way kids learn is by watching their parents. So if you want your kids to be happy yourself. If you want your kids to communicate well yourself, because that's how they learn it.
Well, Jonathan, this has been, and you've got a podcast too, which we should mention because you're doing some incredible work and just helping us to raise awareness. How do we find your podcast?
It's at awarenessexplorers.com, or they can find it on iTunes at Awareness Explorers. Doing
incredible work. Jonathan Robinson, right here on Juice Girl Radio. Jonathan, before we close out here, and this has been so transformational, thank you. Whenever we get to an end of an interview and we feel like we were at one place and we get to the other end and we're like, wow, I've got some real tools now, and I'm personally excited, so I know the audience must be on fire too. Anything to say in closing, anything we didn't touch on, or an activity or anything you wanted to share before we close out the show?
Well, I just say try the 12 questions of instant intimacy on the More Love, Less Conflict website. It's free. And you'll be amazed at how easy it is with the right tool to get to a place of love and connection. We think that's hard, but really with the right tool, it's right there because everybody wants it.
That's great, because that could have been a book itself, that tool right there. That's something everyone needs, whether you're a parent or you're a partner or you're just even in work situations. I would imagine just from the people we work with to have better communication, because that is the key, better communication and for more love in this world. Right, Jonathan?
I think that's the key.
Jonathan Robinson, right here on Juice Girl Radio. I'm Steve Prusak. Thank you again, Jonathan, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Juice Guru Radio. Find out more about us at juicegururadio.com. Until next time, get your juice on.